Hey guys, welcome to another commentary done by Diggity. These replays are from a recent NewEgg tournament. Bottom right hand corner, we have VT Zerker as the red Zerg. Upper left hand corner, we have VT Future starting as the blue Protoss. Happy holidays, by the way, everyone. And this is a very difficult map for Protoss, so I expect Zerker, who's a very strong Zerg player, to actually maybe take this match, because on jungle Basin, extreme distances, if Future's going to win it, he needs to win it early. He is known for having a very strong early game, so it is possible, but he's going to have to cheese one way or another is really what it comes down to oftentimes against a player of the caliber of Zerker, just because you have a very protected natural expansion, which I assume Zerker is going to take right off the bat with probably a hatchery opening build, so he can just boost that economy very, very quickly. And in the meantime, even though you do have that protected natural expansion as a Protoss player, it's once you're talking about outlying expansions like this base right here, all sorts of entry points. And when you're talking about the 9 o'clock or 3 o'clock base, which are your other options, very, very, very long distance from your main, so you have to worry about counterattacks, you have to worry about just having an absolute death grip on map control. Looks like Future already scouting. Zerker actually also sending out a scout with an interesting Overlord pattern headed directly probably to that natural expansion. Yeah, he's going to come out at an angle to get a good look. Future trying to be interspersed and just be a little bit of do a little bit of harass. And the big job here is to get this probe into the natural. Looks like he's already going to plant a pylon actually before even his gateway to try to disrupt this natural expansion, buy himself some time. Definitely an intelligent maneuver, because he needs to do whatever he can to slow his opponent down. Looks like Zerker is going to grab his gas and actually plant a spawning pool in response. So interesting play, deciding to, and perhaps opt not, or perhaps seeing that probe that early, deciding to adjust his play a little bit, get a couple Zerglings and just try to adjust from there. But this might open up a fast expansion from Future, so Future actually might be able to flip it back around. It looks like he is saving for a Nexus. So very interesting play from Future, and it might pay off for him. So spawning pool at 3/4, and keep in mind these Zerglings, once they spawn, they're going to have to deal with the same long distances that tend to benefit Zerg overall. So this drone going to wander out, see that natural expansion being placed by Future. So Future actually going technically 2 pylon, but really a 1 pylon into expansion build. The question is will he be able to hold now? And Zerker, unfortunately, spending all of his larva here, so he's not even going to be able to build a significant attack force to really pressure this early. So, and Future going to lose that scouting probe, but seeing everything he wanted to see right there. So Zerker really not going to be in a position to respond. He will be able to take his natural expansion momentarily, but Future going to be able to make up the difference perhaps a little bit here. It looks like he's planting a forge and a gateway on his front. Might even get his... Oh, it looks like he did a little bit of damage to the drone, but not quite able to get a kill there. But very nice play, and this is really going to flip things over. So now Future actually in a very strong position compared to Zerker. It looks like Zerker actually supply capping himself a bit at the moment too, perhaps just thrown off altogether, saying, okay, fast expansion build Protoss, what's going on here? Grabbing an extractor and canceling it, perhaps to get it a little bit, kind of confusing, perhaps to get a little bit of additional health, also probably to get an additional drone sneak in, but I don't see additional drone building at this stage. Still going to need a couple Zerglings, and Zerker just completely thrown off his build right here, and you can tell grabbing a second gas very early, just the turn of events has really messed with his head. Looks like he is going to get a queen. I'm kind of curious what he's going to be able to make of this now at this stage. Future has that front door blockaded, has a photon cannon, and this is where he needs to, even though yes he managed to get a fairly fast economic start, he needs to follow up with a very strong continuation, because otherwise, keep in mind, creep spread, distanced map, mobile units for Zerg, it could end up, again, not being favorable for him. There's the second hatchery finally from Zerker, very late in this match. Looks like he's just going to go straight to layer tech and try to get it done there. In the meantime, Future just sticking to 1 gas is going to continue pumping mostly probes. Probably it looks like he's going to get that cybernetic score. Actually still hasn't produced a zealot. So try to play, he's playing a little bit more mineral heavy here early game, and I'm curious what he's going to follow up with, perhaps just to get some additional gateways down a little bit more rapidly. But there's the first stalker also getting that warp core, warp core, the cybernetic score warp gate upgrade. Zerker also scouting over that natural expansion, getting good look at the probe saturation, so he realizes that Future does in fact have a vastly superior economy, actually up 6 harvesters. You can almost see almost double the economy of Zerker currently. Zerker still, which makes sense because Zerker still hasn't planted his natural expansion. Does have that queen, does have that layer. Now the question is, Zerker's really at the point where he needs to think about going some sort of creative all-in to try to hit Future and slow him down before he can really press out to that third. Not necessarily an all-in, but some sort of strong maneuver to take map control and seize it into his hands so he can start playing the long-term economic game. But it looks like Future transitioning into a 4-gate build off 2 bases, which very easy to work with. Doesn't look like he's getting any sort of weapons upgrade to that forge, but planting some additional gas, does have that warp upgrade, and he's going to be he could be a little bit more dangerous because of the mobility. Zerker's still having trouble getting his harvester count up. Still has a couple zerglings out, and he's definitely been thrown off his build. Future, ooh, might lose. Oh, definitely going to end up losing that stalker on the front. Just getting a little bit too greedy there. But going to see a significant zergling force that's actually been produced, and it looks like it's Spire for Zerker to open. So Future going to have to rely a little bit more stalker heavy. Hopefully he can get up getting weapons 1 as well. Hopefully he can get blink out and maybe also get a couple sentries, and that's really the combination to work against Mulus. Mulus actually could have a field day here because first of all it can have the mobility to work, do a lot of damage towards the main. Also, it's just a lot of territory to cover with just cannons, and Stalker is not your fastest units without blink. Zerker's natural expansion now up and running, so going to catch up a little bit in harvesters, but Future's done such a fantastic job thus far, I have to say. But again, it's not the early game that matters, it's really the mid game that is really the absolute key. So Mutalisks already being produced, 5 Mules to start, level 1 weapons as well. And it looks like Future, now that he had his front door sealed, going to open that up a little bit with his Zealots and probably press in for a +1 weapons timing attack. And hopefully this will work out because he's going to have a lot of Zealots. He will have +1 weapons. Looks like some additional gateways to kind of press into this, but he's going to be more or less direct countered if he delays too much longer because the Zealots do not do well against Mutalisks. They in fact do not attack air, so those Mutalisks are going to have free reign in the meantime. But if these Zealots can just run in, get some damage done, and just wipe essentially everything out underneath in the meantime, that'll be the game for Future. It looks like some Zerglings being built to counter, but the Zerglings should absolutely melt that level 1 weapons, which should be open up momentarily. There's the Mutalisks wreaking havoc in that natural expansion. Let's see if Future can mount some sort of defense. He's going to only have 3 gateways now to try to do it. Looks like trying to warp in a Stalker. There's only, it looks like 4 Mutalisks, so not going to be the huge Mutalisk threat I was expecting, which is really going to bode well for this Zealot Stalker +1 weapons timing attack. And it looks like Zerker does not have the defenses to cope with this. Just nothing but Zerglings has not brought the Mutalisks back, and as a result, and doing a nice job micromanagement to isolate those Zerglings away from his Stalkers, force them to engage the Zealots. Looked like the Queen getting a face full of Zealot themselves. Ooh, Mutalisks popping right as they're spawning, and it looks like game 1 is in fact going to go to Future here in this best of 3 at this stage of the tournament. And it looks like, yeah, Drone's getting annihilated, and I think Future just won the game. Wow, beautifully played, and just really I gotta give it up to just placing that pylon and having an opening that just really threw Zerker off. And again, very impressive play from Future, playing on a map that really does not favor Zerg, or does not favor Protoss, tends to be a little bit more Zerg heavy, paying off. And I gotta say, Zerker falling a bit there. Hopefully he'll show us more in game 2. And be able to even up more Mutalisks diving, and actually might be able to clear up these Zealots, but not before losing all of their infrastructure. And it looks like there's a Stalker force wandering in as well, so that'll be able to take care of the Mutalisks. Drone's actually coming up the line trying to attack, but Drone on Stalker, not a good combo, particularly if that weapon's a 1 upgrade. So Overlord's getting taken out left and right. Looks like the Zealot's trying to concentrate on that lair. Let's see, come on, there you go. Looks like all the Zealots taken out, but finally engaging the Mutalisks. Even if this attack force does get taken out, Future's still going to be in too strong a position. It looks like more units actually starting to flood in. They're just walking their way this direction. There's GG. Moving on to game 2. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for listening. Hey guys, welcome to game 2 between Future and Zerker. We have Zerker starting at the 12 o'clock location as the red Zerg 3 o'clock location. We have Future as the blue Protoss. And once again, this is a very difficult map for Protoss. You've got an extremely wide open map ramp. Mutalisks so strong on this map, it's not even funny. They just have a field day. On top of that, when you start expanding further and further away, so mobility plays a larger and larger role. So and also scouting is absolutely impossible to deflect as a Protoss player, just because you have overlords that can just approach everywhere, that can kind of float along this destructible rock, that can just charge in the main, they can kind of hang out behind the natural expansion to check that information out. So really strong map for Zerg once again, but Zerker game 1 just seemed like he kind of lost it, fell apart. Looks like we're seeing a very early scout from Future, actually after Pylon, so he wants to get a good eye on what Zerker's doing, perhaps disrupt another fast expansion. But yeah, that early hatchery block just really threw Zerker off, and let's see if we'll see some similar play now from Future. Looks like Future not planning on, well, he's still got a little bit of chrono boost, but I assume he's going to just expend it on probes thus far because he hasn't been continuing to use it, so it doesn't look like he's going to go for any sort of early game rush with probes. Another quick gas from Zerker, probably going to plant down his spawning pool very rapidly to follow. Sending out his own drone scout to get a good look inside Future's base. Future just planting a gateway along that corner, and Zerker also having that Overlord scouting the front door of Future's base. And Future, kind of an obligatory pylon right here. I think he saw the gas, and I think he saw that spawning pool, but still wanted to plant that anyway, which might as well, because oftentimes, first of all, you're going to delay that hatchery no matter what. If you're continuing to produce probes on time, you're not really being held back. You might supply cap yourself if a couple Zerglings are produced early, but let's say if Zerker a little bit later doesn't hurry up and take that pylon down once you have warp gates out, all of a sudden that pylon is a forward staging point. But usually what you'll see is the first 4 Zerglings taking that pylon out, and at the very least you're slowing down any sort of quick hatchery build until that pylon is taken care of. So I think it's worth the money no matter what. Oftentimes that's obviously Future's, well, not always, but that's obviously Future's sort of style at this stage, and he's definitely wanting to try to slow Zerker down wherever he can. First couple Zerglings being produced by Zerker, probably just to take care of that probe scout, which is getting all sorts of scouting information. Interestingly enough, Zerker has pulled back, either that drone died or pulled it back, but it looks like a pseudo front door blockade to deal with some of that early Zergling incursion. We are seeing a speed upgrade of Zergling, which leads me to believe that Zerker might in fact go for a quick Zergling attack altogether. But it looks like he's starting to deal with that pylon, at least initially, at that natural expansion. In the meantime, Future has that front door blockade, he has a cybernetics core, he has a gateway, has that nexus. And why I say that is because it's a very fast metabolic boost, considering, I mean, Zerker could have saved that, gone for hatchery instead, gotten gas a little bit later. Obviously, he's getting his natural expansion up a little bit now. I don't know, there's just not a lot of reason to get Zergling speed at this stage, particularly with the Overlord coverage, unless you want to have Zerglings in the mid game in particular. So I'm curious, once we see that natural expansion up in the next Overlord pop, if we're just going to see a whole lot of Zerglings produced from Zerker. Anyway, looks like we are seeing the warp grade upgrade from Future. He's getting, he's got 2 gateways, and it looks like he's going to more of a tech build, grabbing that second assimilator to get perhaps a robotics facility out, or maybe even go up to 4 gateways and play a little bit heavier in the Stalker play. That is one thing where speed Zerglings will definitely help out to follow up in the mid game. Looks like that initial Stalker going to be able to pull that Overlord back just a bit, and it looks like we do have 2 gateways fielded. Let's see if we see a 3rd gateway or a robo to follow this sub-Zergling speed now finished, and it looks like the hatchery is being upgraded to a layer, and it looks like a Stargate, interestingly enough, to follow this up. Let's see if really it's going to be critical that Future can just repel this, the scouting information. And I like the fact that he's decided to go to kind of open Stargate, and ooh, this could really hurt for Zerker, because Zerker actually opening up with roaches off 2 bases. Still has the Zergling force out and about to try to do some harassment, deny that natural expansion, but it looks like it's going to be 3-gate into Stargate build. I'm very curious how this is going to play off. I love the scouting coverage though with those Zerglings. He's got one at the Salonga Watchtower, also checking out that gold expansion just in case, also getting a creep tumor planted. It looks like he does have that secondary up and running, and this is now that Overlord just kind of wandering out to the north. Zerker actually falling quite a bit behind though as far as just raw production count. He's not that far behind economically, but still somewhat behind in drones, and it looks like Future going for some sort of timing attack here. He has producing a couple Zealots, a couple more Stalkers, and it almost looks very similar to that initial build, and it looks like it might be a Void Ray combination Zealot Stalker attack. There's the amount of Zerglings I was hoping to see a little bit earlier in this match, but this Void Ray, wow, is going to be almost completely unopposed. Zerker needs to actually get some additional queens out to try to deal with it, but it looks like it's just going to be 2 queens to try to defend everything, more or less. And here comes the Stalker, here come the Stalkers and the Zealots. Between the Roaches and the Zerglings that are going to be out in the field, Zerker will be able to fight that off, but he's going to have significant trouble against this Void Ray, which is now moving in directly towards his base. Now, the Queen alone is not going to be able to handle it. He needs, again, desperately needs a second Queen or some sort of anti-air. Future initially charging up on that extractor. That Queen actually fleeing. The Stalker's now moving up actually in the high ground to provide a kind of a pincer attack, running into a dedicated rush force, and it might come into an elimination match here because Future might be able to get that main down, but he's going to have to deal with what looks like a significant Roach Zergling army to follow this up, and it looks like the Queen's actually coming off the line to engage it here. But yeah, actually the Void Ray, instead of focusing on the layers, just picking off drones very rapidly. But yeah, Future's main completely empty. The second Void Ray now coming into the field, which is going to make it even more difficult for these Queens to really cope with it. Second Queen in the battle, but not going to transfuse the first Queen in time, it looks like. So one Queen down, first Void Ray stands, and if and that second Queen trying to flee. So queenless, mostly empty main, some drones no longer harvesting, and it looks like Roaches and Zerglings headed towards Future's front door. So yes, it is in fact going to be an elimination match. Can 3 Stalkers hold out against, well, and just buy time essentially against Zerker's wow, massive attack. We can just assume those Void Rays are going to work in the background, but the Roaches, wow, just nailing this front door. Only 4 Stalkers giving up the front. Looks like 3 being left here in the meantime, trying to retreat. Probe line completely open. Void Ray now here to try to help defend as well, but these Roaches can do a lot of damage in the meantime. They're continuing to flood forward. Natural expansion out. Future moving back to the main, which is mining again for Zerker, and it looks like the Roaches are bit by bit getting cleaned up, so it looks like he is going to be able to hold this attack back and win the match. So very fun creative build. Unfortunately, it was just one of those build order counter situations for Zerker. But nevertheless, Future with some nice solid defense is going to be able to hold out, and it looks like GG from there. Hope you guys enjoyed it again from the WanFest from NewEgg. Future wins over Zerker, and I'm actually not sure what stage of the match this is. Thanks for listening.
We'll be right back.